night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Oh, it's that time. Hey, folks, what's happening? Good afternoon. On June 17, 2015, in Charleston, South Carolina, 9 people were killed and 1 was injured during a Bible study at Mother Emanuel AME Church. Dylan Roof, a 21-year-old white supremacist, was convicted of these murders and awaits execution. Violence erupted in a college town in Charlottesville, Virginia on August 12, 2017, after hundreds of white nationalists and their supporters who gathered for a rally over plans to remove a Confederate statue were met by counter-protesters. Heather Heyer was murdered during the protest. Now, today in 2025, in the United States of America, we have the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch Program. This organization began shortly after February 7th of this year, when a terrorist organization, a neo-Nazi racist hate group, waving swastika flags and shouting racial slurs, demonstrated on a highway overpass just on the edge of the first Black self-governed town in Ohio. What's going on here? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. Here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they take place in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historical context in which most events take place. During each episode, my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between these events and the broader historic context in which they occur, thus enabling you to better understand and analyze the events that impact the global village in which we live. On today's episode, the issue before us is, do African Americans and African American communities have the right to defend themselves as we continue to find ourselves facing existential threats? My guest is a councilman in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, and a football coach who is committed to justice, economic empowerment, and preserving the history and future of Lincoln Heights, Ohio. He is Councilman Daronce Daniels. Councilman Daniels, welcome to Connecting the Dots.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you. It's definitely good speaking with you again, Dr. Leon. Definitely good speaking with you again.
Let's start with this. What is the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch Program? When and why was it founded, and what is its mission?
So the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch Program is essentially pretty much a response to how the residents felt unsafe, uneasy after February 7th. And it wasn't just the neo-Nazis coming into the community, causing havoc and causing terror. Obviously, as Black folks in this community, is something that we're unnecessarily used to. But the biggest response, or lack of response, came from our police department, both from our neighbors in Evendale and our own personal police department here, which is the sheriff's Hamilton County. So when the sheriffs and the police department show no response, and actually they seem to assist and aid and give Uber rides to the neo-Nazis, the residents didn't feel safe. So they wanted to make sure that our kids, first and foremost, felt safe when they got home going from school. because when the neo-Nazis got there, it was about 2:30, and that's when all of our kids were kind of dismissed, starting from high school to elementary. So number one priority is making sure the kids felt safe. They also were right across the street from one of our prominent senior apartment buildings. So it was then making sure our seniors felt safe and they felt secure. And then that just kind of branched out into an overall piece where we wanted to make sure that when folks are coming into the community, or if anything seems suspicious into the community, we have a communication process, and then we're able to communicate not with just our residents, but with the local law enforcement as well too. We're definitely about abiding by all the laws, and we're definitely about taking advantage of all of our rights here as Americans. So yeah, that's how the Safety and Watch program came into place. Us as the Heights movement, and that's the center of the building I'm currently in. We definitely were just a meeting place where the residents chose that, hey, we need a Safety and Watch program, just like any other community, a community watch or community safety program. We just like our acronym, so we wanted to call it Lincoln Heights SAW. But yeah, that was pretty much the beginning of that branch of our community work.
Give us a little background, because when you use the word community, Lincoln Heights is not only truly a community, it is a historic community. And in fact, to that point, there's an interesting op-ed called "My Grandfather Helped Build Lincoln Heights. Now it's our turn to protect it," and it's written by you. My grandfather, Elbert Lee Daniels, was a builder, not just of homes or roads, but of a legacy. He was born in Lincoln Heights in 1927, but his story, our story, started long before that, back in Gainesville, Georgia in the early 1900s, when white mobs drove out black men. So again, it's not only is Lincoln Heights a community, not only is it an African-American community, it is a historic community.
Absolutely. I'm proud to say I'm the 5th generation Daniels to live here in the village of Lincoln Heights. And I tell everybody, some of the best memories I have is sitting on my grandfather's porch and him just going through the history of this community, this proud community, because that's what he saw. Obviously, our incorporation founding was in 1947, but Black folks have been living here since the 1920s. And as you mentioned, his dad, his uncles, his grandfather, all start off in Gainesville, Georgia. And my great uncle, he had an affair with a white woman in Gainesville, Georgia. And obviously in 1919, some white folks decided that was something to die for. So they ended up killing my uncle. They hung him in the church. And then in that process, I guess, sorry, like I said, information said, yeah. But in that process, when they hung him in the church, a lot of our family members, they didn't feel safe in that community, just like kind of they do now. So, but the greatest thing that I also tell about the folks about that story is when my uncles and when my grandfather and when my great grandfather, heard about it, they didn't just leave Georgia. They came with a mission and an identity that we're going to start our own community. So they couldn't buy land in the city of Cincinnati, but they had land that was, set off just for them, 13 miles from the city of Cincinnati. And all those folks, they bought land here. They built their homes here. And when they did that, they realized, hey, even within that process, there's nowhere that, our folks can become fire chiefs. There's nowhere where our folks can become police chiefs. There's nowhere where our folks become the mayors and the city councilmen in their city. So they thought even more progressively. They had the audacity to think in the 1930s, coming out of Reconstruction and in the heart of Jim Crow, we're going to start our own city and our own community. And that was hit with a lot of different backlash, because you got to think in the late 1930s, we're pushing into World War I. And what was right across the street from us is what we call Wright Aeronautical Plant, which later becomes GE Aviation. So most of our flight engines and our jet engine planes, and one of the biggest industrial companies that was going to be built, one of the most wealthiest companies at the time that was ever going to be built, was built right across the street from our community, in land that was annexed and stolen from our community. And as you just talked about, once again, the proud history of our residents and just what we've been through, is one where folks were pushed out of Georgia. when they pushed out of Georgia, came to Cincinnati, were pushed out of Cincinnati, and when they were pushed out of Cincinnati, decided they were going to build their own community, take their own skill sets and think, not just for themselves, not just for their kids, but for myself and for my kids. So when we have a situation where you have neo-Nazis coming in, you have a situation where you have the police department that as taxpayers you're not protecting, it's on us to now show that we are going to do our ancestors the due diligence and protect this legacy. And that's where we're at right now. It's a proud history, the home of the Nikki Giovanni, the home of the Isley brothers, the home of Carl Westmoreland. There's some great individuals that have come from this community and have done not just an impact in our community, but have done impact around the whole world. So when we have a situation here where our community may have dealt with some struggles, some adversity, one thing that we will not tolerate is hate individuals coming in saying that they're going to control the tempo, control the narrative, and that's why I'm just so proud about our residents. Once again, I'm a fifth generation Daniels to live here, but that's one of many stories where not just my best friends, but my best friends' granddads were best friends and their dads were best friends. So these are stories that we all understood. This was just nature to us. This was second nature to us, to protect it, to defend it, but not just to defend it, but to build off of it. The sense of community here, as I said before, saying it's natural is a little bit of an understatement, but the biggest thing that we know what we needed to do is say, in this moment, in this time, how do we make sure we leverage everybody's skill sets, everybody's fire, everybody's emotion, and don't make it just a moment, but truly making a movement where our community can move forward. So I'm hoping that we're making our ancestors proud. I'm hoping that I'm making my grandfather proud, and all the young men and the young women who sacrifice their times out of each day to protect this community, to cook meals, to send emails, to do all the ground and grassroots work it takes to build community. I hope that their ancestors are proud of them as well too.
Dr. Nick Rivera writes, they hung him in the church.
They hung him. So here's
wait a minute. Let me give a little personal history. So the Phoenix election riot, November 8th, 1898 in Greenwood County, South Carolina. A group of local white Democrats tried to stop a Republican election official from taking votes from African Americans who had been denied the ability to vote. As a result of this conflict, a white guy winds up getting shot. Nobody knows who shot him. But what they did was they rounded up the usual suspects and they took them to what was called the Rehoboth Church. And they lynched them at the church. My great uncle, Wade Hampton McKinney, was one of those individuals lynched at that church. So, yes, Dr. Rivera, they lynched him at the church. And this was the week before the famous Wilmington riot in Wilmington, North Carolina. This was 1 week before the Wilmington riot. So, yes, Dr. Riviera. I'm sorry for that mispronunciation. Yes, they lynched them at, my great uncle was one of those lynched at the, and this is, you can read this this was reported in the New York Times of the day. So yes, go ahead.
And once again, just provide a little bit even more context, because this is the part that my grandfather always, not that he was always scared to tell, or just thought that, so at that moment, as you said, lynched my great uncle in the church, but those men, before they came up to Cincinnati, decided they were going to take their firearms and show a little retribution. Now, obviously, they didn't kill anybody, but they wanted, show a little retribution back to that church before they left. But in that same aspect, the symbols of hate that have been utilized, whether it's religion, as you just talked about it from a church standpoint, whether it's been done in the workplace, our people have never had that opportunity to just truly felt just free, right? Where can you go where if I don't feel free enough I can worry about who I'm loving, or you don't need to worry about what I'm thinking about in my home. Like, You don't need to be worried about if I'm carrying my firearm, if I'm being safe or not. Like, those are the type of things I've always tried to make sure that we can push forward, is that feeling and that confidence of feeling free, because that's what Lincoln Heights was always about, that safe haven for our people.
In fact, just a couple more data points, if I can, and because here we are at connecting the dots, and you mentioned 1919. So after World War I, Black Americans fervently hoped for a new epoch of peace, prosperity, and equality. Yeah. Black soldiers believed their participation in the fight to make the world safe for democracy finally earned them the rights they had been promised since the close of the Civil War. But instead, an unprecedented wave of anti-Black riots and lynchings swept through the country for 8 months, from April to November in 1919. The racial unrest rolled across the South into the North and into the Midwest. In 1921, we had the Tulsa Race Massacre. Over 300 African-American residents were murdered by an angry white mob in Tulsa in 1921. And of course, I just mentioned Dylann Roof at Mother Emanuel. So, and then of course, we've got James Byrd, who was dragged to his death in Jasper, Texas. 2 of the 3 men, Sean Berry, Lance Brewer, and John King, were avowed white supremacists. So this is just a couple of dots to connect so that people can clearly understand what happened in Lincoln Heights is not a one-off.
And you mentioned that as well. So we obviously weren't bombed like in Tulsa, but systematically carved up. And if you ever see the shape of Lincoln Heights, we missed out on so much of our economic tax base due to those same type of systematic problems that you were speaking about. So it's interesting. It's a multitude of books, but I, went through and read the autobiography of Malcolm X one more time. And, he talks about the racism in the North versus the racism in the South. How, sometimes they'll smile at you and say that you can get a piece, and not knowing that in that whole piece they're setting you up to really exploit you this whole time, versus some of the blatant racism that was taking place in the South. But either way, those sacrifices that were made, right, the legacies that were set, that allows us this opportunity to mold this community in the right way, to take this opportunity in the right way. We definitely just want to, build off of their shoulders and off of their legacies. But the history and the data points that you speak about, those microcosms hit in every aspect when you talk about Lincoln Heights, right? Because you talk about World War I, World War II. Lincoln Heights was established in 1947, coming right out of World War II. And that same mindset, thinking that, okay, we fought one of the greatest wars and one of the greatest battles from the greatest generation. That reprimand and that sense of freedom and pride you think would happen back here in this community, but it was obviously the complete opposite. Where they were taken from some of the most in those opportunities. But I know you're talking about definitely connecting the dots. But if you just think about, once again, Lincoln Heights again, the peak of our success was in the 70s, where you have a lot of folks who were working at General Electric, once again getting that prosperous economic boom coming out of World War II. But then what happens? The trade bill happens in the 70s, where a lot of those jobs are leaving Lincoln Heights. So all the mom and pop shops that were able to survive, you work at GE, you come home and you run the local corner store or the local pharmacy and things of that nature, those all got shut down in the 70s.
The shoe repair shop, the cleaners, all the things that you needed to sustain yourself, you all had, and those businesses were Black owned. Many of those businesses were Black owned.
Yes, sir. And then so you started losing some of those, and now your foundation struck a little bit. Then you get into the 80s, where the crack epidemic slides through. Then you get into the 90s, where the crime bill slides through. So in a 20-year period, we lose so many of our fathers, so many Black men who now are supposed to propel and build off of that next generation. They're killed off in the 80s and the 90s. We get to the early 2000s, 2008. We're in a situation where we're dealing with the housing crisis. And then now we're in 2020, where we're dealing with COVID. It's just been so many little microcosms and hits that our community have taken But we're in a situation now, that especially post crime bill, post the crack epidemic, we have a strong foundation of fathers, mothers, early 40s, late 30s, same in their late 20s as well too, who are committed, who are educated, and in a multitude of ways to rebuilding this community to what our founders had. So I'm extremely proud and extremely excited about our community because once again, it's very unique. I can speak to my grandfather who can really tell me about what it's like to build and establish a Black community. A lot of mothers and a lot of our friends can do the exact same thing. You don't get that experience a lot in this country. So what we're building is not just an opportunity to just, Black pride and Black progress, what we're all about, but it's truly protecting an idea that's been passed down to us from truly our parents and our grandparents.
So you have the blessing of being able to speak to your grandfather.
Yeah.
How is he advising you? How is he counseling you in this and the Lincoln Heights organization?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people need to also under the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch program, because a lot of people really need to understand that this is also an outgrowth of the Deacons for Defense, and again, for defense and justice, who in 1964 in Jonesboro, Louisiana, formed a armed group to protect the members of CORE that were working in the area. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense started in 1966. So what type of history and what type of advice and counsel has your grandfather been able to provide?
It's priceless, right? So my grandfather lived a fantastic life. He passed on Valentine's Day this year. So February. So some of his last thoughts you asked, his counsel. He was 97, lived a great life. So February 7th, and a week later, this thing happens. I mean, well, he passes, but he was able to tell me, he wished he had his gun or he would have been out there. Those are the type of things and the mentality he has. So, my grandfather, once again, you're talking about an individual that truly marched with Dr. King here. So we have a hospital here, that's Drake Hospital, that has some discriminatory practices against our people. Definitely wouldn't allow our treat Black patients, and they marched in protest. My grandfather was here when the Nation of Islam was building their mosque here, and some of those individuals would truly stay in their homes here in Lincoln Heights, and some of these churches here in Lincoln Heights. He knew these people. So when you're talking about the downfalls and the mistakes and the pitfalls that we made during the civil rights movement, I got an opportunity to get true eyewitness experience of what works, what doesn't work, where we went right, where we went wrong. And a lot of it has to deal with the way we communicate with each other. Wow. And we miscommunicate with each other because, as you said before, we don't always understand where we're pushing to. What's the goals that we're moving towards? What's the game plan? Sometimes we move so much off of emotion, which makes sense. When you have generations of being depressed, not just depressed, but having to, compromise and push down your feelings for so many generations, when you finally get a chance to speak, yeah, you're going to yell. Yeah, you're going to scream. But in that return of yelling and screaming, it seemed like there was a lot of violence and backlash that came from a conservative colonizing culture. So through those sacrifices, through those butt kickings, through those whippings, those that survived and those that moved on passed on a great deal of knowledge. And it wasn't fear that they passed down. It wasn't saying you need to be scared of these situations. It wasn't what you need to be afraid of the police. It was that you need to equip yourself with the laws. You need to equip yourself with knowledge. You need to equip yourself with the right people who can push a mission forward. And that's all we've done here in the village of Lincoln Heights, especially over the last, I know everybody talks about February the 7th, but here from an organizational standpoint, we've been working since 2017. building community farms because people said that we were a food desert, building this beautiful space because we didn't have any meeting centers. You know, our mission and our goal is consistently asking our residents, going door to door, doing surveys, talking to our people, because at the end of the day, it's not just neighbors to us. Those are my aunties. Like, that's my grandmother's best friend. Like these are my pops' people that he played ball with. So to go ask them, hey, what would you like to see in this community? How can we get it done? Is an easy question for us. So that's the part where my grandfather always stood upon, is that don't move in fear, but make sure when you move correctly and equip yourself with as much knowledge and as many rules and regulations as you can, that you can move in the right manner and move with the confidence that you have. That's one thing that I hope I can continue to push down to not just anybody listening, but to my team. One of them just walk by as we speak, but I always want them to walk with the confidence as a black man, as a black woman, that we can make it through anything. Because we have made it through anything, and we've made it through everything. We just got to make sure we stick together and stick to the game plan. That's the main thing my grandfather taught me.
You know, I want to go back to your point about going door to door and asking the residents what they want, instead of you going to them, telling them what you're going to do. That's one of the key lessons that Mrs. Hamer and I'm drawing a blank on the other sister, her name will come to me in a second, that were involved in SNCC. They were always telling those activists, you can't come from New York down to Mississippi and tell these people in Mississippi what you're going to do. You need to come down from New York and ask these people in Mississippi what they would like to have you do for them.
Because how else is going to work? How often? So I used to work for another company. I won't mention their name. We used to come in and do these grants, act like we were big almighty in these black communities, and then just leave. They didn't ask for this. They didn't say they even wanted it. But folks get to come in, take their picture, and say they're doing something for the black community. When in reality, you're just doing a tax write-off, right? So if you're really about community engagement and community building, that takes a community. And it's not just that though, brother Leon, right? Not on the fact that it's a progressive idea to go ask somebody what they would like to see. But here's the real secret ingredient that we think. What skill sets do you have to make it happen? Because, you know, we've talked about this before. There's so many people that have dreams and aspirations that they want to see for their community. But then we ask them why. I just got done talking with a bunch of high school kids who are fantastic kids. You know, this is a kid that said he wants to be an artist. I said, that's dope, but why do you want to be an artist? He said, well, there's not many art galleries in my community. I said, well, perfect. You know why there's not any art galleries in your community? Because you haven't built it yet. But then you know what I got? I got that pushback. Well, that's going to be hard. I don't know if I can do that. You see, and that's where that mentality where I don't know where I know where it started. Mm-hmm. But I know where we can finish it, and I know where we can stop it. And that's like in programs like this, in conversations like this, where we can truly break down those walls and those barriers and say that community is about allowing somebody that if you don't feel the confidence or you feel a little bit insecure about pushing a problem that you see in community, best believe somebody over here sees that same problem and y'all bring it together. But we stay in our silos. We stay on our phones and talk about it from here instead of really going out on the streets and achieving some of the work that needs to be done. I am so blessed and so honored to be around a community that its DNA is going out, being outside, and going to go get it. I don't really have to pull teeth and ask people and push people into what they want to do. The biggest thing that's happening to our community is that our leadership stopped asking. We got to a certain point where
do you mean Lincoln Heights specifically, or are you talking about the broader context, or both?
I always say Lincoln Heights is a microcosm of the African American experience, but I don't want to offend anybody, so I'll speak on Lincoln Heights. And if And if somebody feels like the shoe fits in the situation, history.
Well, wait a minute now, because I'll tell you what Malcolm said about offending folks. Malcolm said, look, if you get angry at me telling you the truth, don't get angry at me, get angry at the truth. So tell the truth, bro. And what happens, happens.
Because, well, I mean, let's think about it. How often do we really, I'm 38 years old. I really can't remember somebody coming up to me and saying, what do I want to see in my community as a young man that's, that has a family? You would think that, I shouldn't say think, I know. That's who we are attracting to. We are trying to attract the young families who are building up to replenish and rebuild our community. That's who we're reaching out to. Mm-hmm. Nobody did that for me. And you always wonder why. Why did you not reach out and ask? Is it because you're trying to build a system that's conformed specifically to your needs? And I'm talking about the leadership that's ahead of us. We start thinking about some of the tools that we have, some of the strategies that we have. They're stuck in a certain time frame that doesn't allow us to move progressively. I'm not saying that we need to rely upon AI, but AI is like a taboo phrase in the Black community. I'm not saying that we need to rely on different technologies or different skill sets, but these are some things that are taboo in the Black community. How often, and this is where I was just thinking about it on this frame. From a digital standpoint, we could right now, as Black folks, pick one or two, we'll diversify for portfolio, but let's say 5 stocks that Black folks said that we're going to invest in, that we trust, we move upon, and we push that forward. Why is that so hard? Because it's going to be somebody in front that says, oh, we tried it this way, or now I don't want to move it that way. It seems that there seems to be a true generational gap between leaders who got us out of the civil rights movement, post-civil rights movement, into the 90s and 80s, where the conversation was more about how we need to conform ourselves, i.e., our rap music shouldn't be a certain way, or we shouldn't dress this way, or our culture isn't the right way. That seemed like that was a lot of the conversation when I was a kid, where that broken out in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it became more about what do you as an individual want to say? And that's not the right thing either, because it's not about you as the individual, but you do definitely need that sense of confidence to say what you feel. How do we, at a certain point, bring the true audacity, the I almost want to say the push through where you don't care as much? It's almost that FAFO mindset that a lot of us have, because we're tired of it, but we've seen what the other side is. Like, we've seen it in our hands. So you have that FAFO mindset, but also that disciplinary skill set, that poise that was set in beforehand. There has to be a way to gel it all together. And that's where, when I talk about Lincoln Heights, we've fallen off. Because what Lincoln Heights did is that we got into a situation where we felt that what our forefathers said, that set all these businesses up, that did everything, what their dads and their parents did, it was good enough, and they didn't have to maintain it. They could kind of just stick on those morals, and they didn't feel the confidence enough to push it forward and to progress it. So it died. We have a little bit of a different mindset, where it's not even where we're scared to ask those questions of people, where it's not where we're scared to ask our residents what failed, but it's more so of, well, let's try something completely different. And if it doesn't work, you can blame me. But the biggest thing we're going to do if it doesn't work is we're going to work together to fix it. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen in our community, is a fear of truly pushing something forward that was built before us, because maybe you may not know how, or maybe you're scared to ask. We're just not there anymore. We're beyond that. And I wish you can see what's taking place behind me right now. I know you can probably hear it, but it's a path through of brothers and sisters that was walking through, that said that it's not a matter of fact that they're willing to help or if they're going to help. This is what I can do. I'm going to bring it to my community because it matters to me. And since it matters to me, and it matters to you, and it matters to you, everything else and anybody else's petty problems don't matter anymore. They're able to fall by the wayside. I'm looking forward to a day that us as a complete black folks as a country can move like that. Now we're going to start here in Lincoln Heights in that mindset. Mm-hmm. We're going to start here doing that. But yeah, like I said, I know what you said about offending folks, but I'm definitely about trying to. Malcolm also said I don't want our black folks killing each other either, right. and that's definitely something that I'm big upon. But we are so easily negative against each other on these digital platforms and everything else like that. We never ask anybody, what truly is your problem that you see, because half of the time we can work together to move it forward and create alliances. And there's been a lack of that, I felt like, over the last 10 to 15 years, but we're hoping to change that.
Miss Ella Baker is whose name I was trying to come up with when it came to advising SNCC and explaining to them about organization and asking the people you're trying to help what they need, as opposed to telling them what you're going to do. Can I
ask you a question, though, brother, Dr. Leon, on that? Because you got to think about this as well, too, from a SNCC standpoint. Was it not that same situation when you came in, you had a young, aggressive group of folks who said, this is what we've been doing in Montgomery. You had another group of folks that was saying, we're the seasoned individuals that know how to do that. And they had to mesh and make it forward. Now that's the fairy tale story that we get. What was the true grind to make that happen, right? What was the sacrifices who really had to make the sacrifice? If you understand the question that I'm asking, I'll rephrase it. Congressman Lewis.
Yes.
So when I go back and I'm asking him, he lost a lot of friends in SNCC.
Right.
He lost a lot of individuals because they said they had to make this kind of push forward. Those are the sacrifices that I'm asking, especially because that's a generation that's ahead of us, right? What were those true sacrifices like? Because you're doing it on a sense that you're giving. Yeah. I think you understand the question I'm asking.
It's interesting that you mentioned him because I'm friends with Mukasa Dada with Willie Ricks, who will give you his answer. So, if I understand your question, the friction or the issues were, I think, those that are just naturally inherent in any organization. You're going to you had John Lewis that thought that SNCC should go one direction and should subscribe to particular tactics at a certain point in the history of the organization and the movement. And then you had Stokely. You had at the time Willie Ricks. You had another group that said this now has served its purpose and we need to take this another direction.
Yeah.
And so SNCC told John from the way that Mukasa tells the story. SNCC told John Lewis, "We're going this way. You go that way."
Yeah.
If that, but those are the growing pains that organizations have to go through in order for them. We saw it within the Nation of Islam,
and that's kind of, because that's the question I'm getting to, is that at what point from a cultural standpoint do we no longer consider that a growing pain and a past piece that we've learned from? That's why I think that's still, I think we're going through that now.
So I think part of that answer is it's not you can't avoid going through it. That's the growth process that is going to occur with any organization. I think the lessons come from how you manage it. So, for example, one of the things that the FBI with the COINTELPRO program was very successful at when it came down to the founders of the Panthers was pitting one against the other, going inside and dividing and conquering.
Yeah.
And part of that problem was they didn't communicate with each other. They read the letters that came in and they listened to the rumors that came in. You know, Huey was told that somebody else was trying to do this behind. And so instead of going and saying, hey, brother, look, this is what I was just told.
Yeah.
What's going on? No, man, that wasn't me. I think, you know, so now we should be smarter. Now forewarned is forearmed. So now we should be hip to that game.
So
does that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I said, I know we're connecting the dots, but I also like to pull knowledge when I can, especially when we're talking from a strategy standpoint, because we're talking about from a Lincoln Heights, and we obviously lobby and we do things from us. Let
me give you one quick one. Let me give
you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm not going to mention his name simply because I don't have his. But a mentor of mine, as my show started to gain more traction, and as I started to gain more popularity, a friend of mine, a mentor, came to me and he said, "Let me tell you something, Wilmer." He said, "They're going to come at you, man. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to find the one weakness. They're going to find the one vice that you have. And they're going to bring it to you in boatloads. And when you bite that hook, you're done." He said, "Always remember, when whatever that vice is, a case of liquor, a pound of weed, a beautiful woman, whatever it is, it comes with a cost. And you have to ask yourself." So he was telling me, don't let my ego and never forget self-control, and these beautiful trinkets and baubles come with a cost.
And that was, and because I love where this conversation is going, especially on that front, right? Because the greatest thing, the biggest downfall, but the greatest strength that El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X had was his love for not just the nation, but for Elijah Muhammad. Mm-hmm. So they couldn't throw him off because his niche, his hook was the nation, his people. That's how I feel about this community, right? Where you can't really throw us off because at the end of the day, we live here. We've been living here. We can't go anywhere else because we know what we have. When we talk about two things, the Black culture from a country standpoint as well too, because we also live in this country too, and we understand what laws and things of that nature, go against us. It's a situation where when you watch past movements and you talk about past situations and the growing pains that you say that everyone has to go through, when do we as a culture, right, realize that there's certain people, certain organizations that have already gone through those growing pains and they're already moving forward with it, right? Like, I know we have the NAACP. I know we have different organizations, but do we have a true lobbying presence who lobbies on the behalf of the Black people's needs in Washington, D.C., right?
No.
Like those type of things. Like those type, but the Jewish community does.
Absolutely.
The gun community does.
Absolutely.
The Latino community does.
Absolutely.
We've been here from the start and we don't. But that's what I mean by the growing pains part, where it's like we seem to get to a certain point where, and I get where you even go with that as well too, Dr. Leon, on folks with the hooks, but like the mission has to be the greater good of our people.
Here's part of, not all of, here's part of the difference is, and this goes back to our HBCUs. And I can say this because I've got 3 degrees from 2 of them. Yeah. And I know you've been to one as well, even though you didn't.
Right.
Anyway, assimilation. Our HBCUs were established to teach us to assimilate into mainstream America, which at the time was a radical concept.
Yeah.
Based upon segregation and all those, the black codes and all that stuff. So during that time, to teach us to assimilate into mainstream, to integrate into mainstream. That means we had to make sacrifices. We had to make cultural sacrifices in order to assimilate and integrate into mainstream America. Yeah. I say all the time, one of the big mistakes we made was we got confused between desegregation and integration. Because if we had, in order for us to integrate, some of our stores had to go, some of our businesses had to go. We then started establishing our value based upon a standard from outside of our community. The white man's ice is colder than the black man's ice. And also, we have been so much wanting to be loved and accepted by the white man that we sacrifice being respected, let alone being feared. Because you mentioned the Jewish community. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants are the most anti-Semitic people you'd ever want to find. But they fear and respect. They fear and respect that community because they understand, because of its cohesion, the power that it wields.
So, man, because you touched upon it, because once again, and I know we may not be able to answer that question today, but I bring that up on two fronts, because when this Nazi situation happened, the first people that we heard from originally, obviously, was the Jewish community, that connectivity, and then obviously that story died down. And I'm not saying that nothing against our Jewish brothers at all and our Jewish sisters at all. That's not where I'm going with this, but it seemed like when that button was pushed, it was a very concerted effort to make sure that the Jewish community was taken care of and felt okay, if that makes sense. The complete opposite has been done here, where now the residents of Lincoln Heights not only had to work to make sure that we felt comfortable, in the process of doing that, making ourselves feel comfortable, you get some pushback. But the pushback seems to be coming from, not all, but some from your own community. And it seems to get back to that original thought process that you just said, right? Where we have individuals who feel like the best path forward is to assimilate. But at what portion do we realize that true assimilation?
Yeah, but you're, first of all, you're never going to get 100% buy-in.
Yeah.
First of all. Yeah. Second of all, there were Nazi collaborators that were Jews. And so and also the Jewish community is not a monolith. Yeah. Which is why now when Mahmoud Khalid, thank you, Kevin Baptist, greatly appreciate that $10 super sticker. So that's why you had when Mahmoud Khalil, that Palestinian brother that was just arrested and they're trying to deport him, when he got arrested last week, there were over 100 Jewish people that were protesting at Trump Tower in support of him, and they're called self-hating Jews by the Zionist lobby.
Yeah.
So it's not. I think we a couple of things. One, yes, their community can be a good example for certain points, but they are not the be all and end all. They have a lot of the same issues. They confront the same challenges that so many other communities, but because they are a community, they are able to keep a lot of their dysfunction discreet and in-house.
Yeah.
But if look, you're not gonna get buy-in from everybody in Lincoln Heights on anything. So hey, you can party with me, you can party without me, but we gonna party.
Oh, yeah, that's how we've been moving for sure. And I think that's a cultural shift too as well too, right? Just in general, where I think our culture is getting to a point. I think where melanated people are getting to a point where it's like, look, we're moving in this direction where you want to move with this or not. And I'm just hoping that in this process with so many ways to communicate that we can get organized enough where, as you said before, we're not a monolith, but we should have some strong structural goals that we hold individuals to. Like I'm always been the mindset of, and when I first heard it, I think was the Obama speech where it said, we're not a red America, we're not a blue America, we're the United States of America. Well, kind of same concept for our people, but just in a different sense that we don't belong to a blue party or a red party. We need to vote for our self-interest.
Exactly. No permanent enemies, permanent interests.
But we also need to identify clearly what those interests are and how we go about that. Because as you said before, I think individuals are looking for who are our leaders to tell us what these things are.
Right.
I get both sides of it, but at a certain point, we need to really start the conversation. Like, what is that conversation, and how transparent can we make it that I shouldn't say have every Black person, but how transparent and how accessible can we make it that every Black person I know can access it? Because once again, I know if my people in Lincoln Heights can do it, because I have a wide range of individuals here. That method, that strategy can be passed along anywhere.
Well, success breeds success, and you are going to get different types of pushback at different parts of the process, but you're also going to get different levels of support.
Yeah.
And some of those naysayers that were challenging you and telling you were headed in the wrong direction, they may not be there with you in the first meeting. They may not be there with you in the 10th meeting, but maybe in the 12th meeting, Brother Daniels, look, young fella, I was watching you, and so you never know when it's going to come. You never know where it's going to come. You have to be ready for it when it does. But at the same time, you always got to watch out for that agent provocateur. You always have to understand that the tentacles of this intelligence apparatus, they run long, hard, and deep, and they play hard in the paint.
Yeah.
And look at Brother Omali Yeshitela and what they just tried to do to the Uhuru movement.
Yeah. And that's
yeah.
No. I'm just, because we see it so often where so many of our movements have been derailed, distracted, pushed off, but it seems like it's always our movements. It just seems like it's our movements that get that, and that's all. Because and I get it, brother, Dr. Leon, because you know you're not going to win everybody over, but you strive to, right? You strive to work within the masses and try to work with what the people want to do. I think the biggest hurdle and the biggest part that you feel, even from every movement, is that you don't want to fall into mistakes that people have done in the past, right? And you want to, and especially from a position that we're in, you understand that you have people's lives at stake, people's livelihoods at stake. And I think that's where a lot of individuals who come to you and say, hey, I want to do something, or I want to move in the right way, not necessarily are nervous about, or they don't obviously always know how to navigate those fields. And I guess the only thing that you can do is just trial and error and keep working and keep making it work. But I'm hoping that this conversation is discouraging anybody in our path and our movements. But yeah,
really quickly, I'm in this organization called the Jazz Listening Group of Washington. Group of brothers.
I'm a Coltrane guy, by the way.
Oh well, there we go. I end my show, my Saturday show. Please play more John Coltrane.
A-Train, yes, sir.
And we close with Song of the Underground Railroad. But what we do, we get together the second Saturday of every month. We've been doing this for about 35 years, and a different person hosts a meeting each month, and we listen to the music. We have a great lunch. We fellowship, we move on with our weekend. 35 years. It's a men's group.
Yes, sir.
We got brothers that come in and say, hey, we should bring our wives. No, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got 35 guys in this group. If each of us puts in $100, we can buy a building. No, that's not what we do. This is what we do. If you want to do that, go do that.
Yeah.
But the second Saturday of every month, this is what we do.
Yes, sir.
And so, I use that as an example of it. And the intentions of those other ideas are good intentions, but it's not what we do.
Yeah.
So you have to understand your mission. You, Michael, thank you very much for that. You have to stay true to your mission. And when other ideas come in and other people want to go directions, you got to ask the first question. Well, two questions. What's the mission? What's our mission? And is what you're trying to advocate going to get us closer to accomplishing that mission or distract us from it? And if it's going to distract us from it, then you got to put it off for another time, because that's not what we're about right now. And don't get your feelings hurt. Don't get mad. Don't go away mad. Just go away.
and even that, and hopefully that's the last resort, right? Because hopefully you can say, well, yeah, because hopefully you can say, well, what other skill sets do you have? You can put it to work. But I think, man, I really appreciate these talks, Dr. Leon. For me personally, like I said, I know our one on Saturday was dope, but I appreciate this one as well too, because it's just. I was working with a bunch of students today, and we were obviously talking in class, and we were just speaking to think about it. There's a school here that a lot of our kids go, but we have a lot of migrant individual students that come here. So there's kids from Jamaica, Guatemala, Mexico, but they start them all off at the quote unquote 8th grade with their multitude. They wanted to talk about this situation in this community. And I was pretty much telling them, and I was speaking to our Latin students. I said, I look in this classroom, there's more non-English speaking individuals in this classroom. There's no reason why when I walk into this class, I don't see Spanish speaking material in here. Like, and the same thing I told to our black kids in the back. I said, there's no reason why when we walk into any community, there's more black and brown people in this country. At what point do we really put our needs and what's best for us in this country at the forefront? Not saying that it's going to push anybody else off, because we're all men, we're all fathers. I don't care what color you are. I'm sure everybody wants their kids to eat and they want their wives to be happy so we can be cool. But the process is not everybody has the same playing field, but everybody also isn't leveraging the people power as well too. And that's where I'm just hoping that if this movement can do anything for Lincoln Heights, is that we can continue to encourage our residents to use their people power. But I'm hoping from a broader standpoint, man, that we can truly, take advantage of our people power. I'll let you go on this. I know we talk a lot of data points, but it said there's 44 million black folks in America, which is like one of the highest populations in a lot of countries in the world.
Right.
So when they say that we're a small minority, that's not true.
That's right.
The African-American community is strong in numbers, but when are we going to truly leverage that in the right way to make the quality of life better for not just our people? Because I feel like if our people are doing pretty good, everybody is doing pretty well, Dr. Leon. But I do. I appreciate these talks. This has been therapeutic for me. I hope your listeners also got something out of it as well too.
I have two more, if you could quickly, two more points. Sir. One, multi-tom-tom, what's the root cause of racism? Well, let me just quickly say that's a show in and of itself, but you have to understand what's the root cause or what's the root elements of race. And race is an artificial construct that has no biological support, started by Europeans in order to justify their white supremacy and their oppression of people of color. I think that's a very simple, quick answer to your question. Multi-tom-tom, thank you for asking it. Michael Barskill, thank you for that super sticker. When I saw, it was an interview, I think it was on MSNBC, I saw you do. And one of the things that, and we talked about this before, but I'd like for you to explain this to the audience. One of the things that stood out to me was the context of the interview was as though you all are just a bunch of crazy Negroes running around the streets with guns.
Yes, sir.
And this is not as much of a criticism of the woman that did the interview. It's just an observation that I made. If you could explain and this is what we started the top of the show with, African Americans defending themselves in their own community. What happened and why?
Not just, but legally defending themselves in their community. So once again, it's not a bunch of Negroes, as you said before. These are fathers, these are mothers, these are business owners that live in the community of Lincoln Heights who decided and did not feel safe that things like what took place on February the 7th, if it was to happen again.
What took place? Explain what took place.
Sorry. So when neo-Nazis come into our community, because that's what took place on February the 7th, we had an invasion of neo-Nazis come into our community, walking around with swastika flags, carrying long armed guns, having bear spray, things of that nature, all in our community. What happened was our residents showed up and told them they need to get the heck up out of here, took their Nazi flag and burned it. But the thing that only slowed our residents down from getting to them was the police officers, some from outside of our community, some from our community. So when the residents see that and they see that the police are protecting the Nazis and their paraphernalia, we had a little bit of concern there, especially since this happened right after school. So that
was not by accident. Their timing of the protest, because it was all about intimidation.
Those are people on the front lines with the high school kids. They're literally on the front lines, getting off of school, recording what the heck is going on. And you got other folks driving in as well, too. But yeah, it's the heart of it. So no, the residents did not feel safe. The kids did not feel safe. Our seniors did not feel safe. So there was a call of action amongst everybody to come meet and say, what are we going to do about it as residents? So we decided that we would make sure that those who do have their CCWs, that do can legally carry, and those that don't carry at all, can patrol, march, and make sure these kids are safe. Now, that started off as just a couple-day thing, and then it evolved into the Safety and Watch program. So just like anything else, you have individuals in your community saying, I want to help, I want to be a part of it. So we got a bunch of kids within the community. I keep calling them kids because I know I'm 38, but I coach a lot of these young men. You got folks under the age of 25 who are in our community who are already packing. They say, hey, I want to protect my community, but they may not have been doing it the legal way. So now we get them trained up. Everybody's going through legal training every Saturday. Everybody's making sure they're going through CCW training and things of that nature as well, too. So even those within the community. So you talk about some of our young cats that were just running around with a gun who didn't even know what the heck to do with it. Now have a purpose for it. Not a purpose for that gun, but a purpose for themselves. To protect their community, to feel like they're defenders of their community, what they were in the first place. But now they have something really tangible to protect it against. And ever since February the 7th, these crazy fools keep showing up. Like we had 15 instances where they either come in the community to be a nuisance. We just had one of them they had their court hearing Wednesday where all the judge gave dude was a littering ticket, but it was the Grand Wizard of the KKK in Maysville. He came into our community after that, driving through the community, and luckily our Safety and Watch program saw the individual, let the authorities know, and like I said, all they gave the man was a sorry behind littering ticket. But these are not just folks just thinking that they're the Avengers or something. These are not people who walk around thinking they're Batman. I cannot stress enough that these are people that have real life jobs, who have to get off their real life job, deal with their real life kids, and try to find some time to make sure that the community is safe. These are the people in the community. And what our role is from the Heights movement and what our role is community leaders is to make sure they have every resource, every certification, every tool that they need to make sure that they're safe while they doing the work that our sheriff department said that they won't do.
And I think it's important for people to understand. I don't know the mindset of these neo-Nazis, but it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if they are trying to bait you all into action so that Donald Trump's crew can respond with larger action. So I tell people, for example, looking at the deportation of these Venezuelans that they sent to El Salvador, it's not about the I told my class this today. It's not about the Venezuelans. This is a trial balloon. He's trying to test to see if he can deport us. We have to think. We can't get distracted and caught up in the action of the moment. We have to understand what the much bigger agenda is, and so that we don't get caught or taken or take that hook.
And man, and that's why I know a lot of folks focus on the security aspect of it, but it's so much like we build a true community where every individual has a place to fit their puzzle piece in this overall grand scheme thing here. So it's whether it's fear of deportation, fear of lockup, which a lot of us are, unless we are people. I'm definitely not trying to get anybody in any type of trouble, but it's real interesting that we start to hear rumors that there's certain police departments that are looking into individuals in our community, but not for the Nazis. Like I said, those type of threat techniques we anticipated. The biggest thing that you mentioned as well too is the repeat aspect of it, the contagion factor, as he asked Morgan, but didn't ask the other side of it. Nobody seems to worry about the contagion factor of neo-Nazis swinging back through again, but there are some individuals in our federal government, I'll just put in our federal government that we've spoken with, that have mentioned that that is a definite threat, that there's something that they have their eye on, and that we need to start making contingency plans within our community, in our law enforcement, that if they do show up again, how do we make sure that everybody makes it home? Safe. So because like we said, we're able to get the folks within our community, especially those that want it, that work with us, that want to be truly a part of the safety and watch patrols. We get those individuals truly trained up, as legaled up as possible. But we also know there's individuals in our community who just carrying as well too. So if the Nazis were to show up again, like I said, we just want to make sure everybody in the community understands what our next steps are, and we're working to be strategic in that aspect as we speak.
Councilman Daronce Daniels, my brother, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for the work in the community. Great. Oh, how can people that want to contact you, people that want to contribute, what do they do?
Yeah, so please, I saw it underneath the ticker there. You're more than welcome to email me at theheightsmovement at gmail.com, email-wise, or go to our website, theheightsmovement.org. That's theheightsmovement.org. Click the Get Involved button or scroll all the way down to the bottom and donate. But as me and brother Dr. Leon always said, man, for anybody out there, if you have any problems in your community, just do it. Just solve those problems. Just take that first step and solve those problems, and you'll be surprised how far you'll grow into making our people a better place.
Get Back With Me asks, are the college and university working with you?
Oh, so the colleges that are working with us right now. So we have the University of Cincinnati that works with us specifically on our gun range work. And this particular work that we're talking about now with the neo-Nazis, no, but it's not that when I say specific, it's not that they haven't asked or it's not anything of that nature. We've been when I say our heads has been down grinding for the last 6 months. It's not that nobody has reached out and asked. We actually had the council of it's all the college professors who teach African American studies. We had a great meeting here on Friday to talk about some of those things as well too. Shout out to Dr. Melina Abdullah, a fantastic woman who was leading that charge. But so it's not that we haven't and we don't want to. It's just we've been so busy here lately, just making sure that everybody has what they need. We're really just now getting a chance to kind of take a breath and move in that direction. But our local universities have reached out and have wanted to help. We just have to make that a little bit more formal over these next few weeks. And
final point, as we get out, people need to also understand a little bit about you. And you've got 2 master's degrees. Yeah. You've put in. You are not only putting in the work in the community, you've put in the academic side of it as well. So you've learned a few things along the way.
Yeah, I guess I had a dad who always told me I was able to use football. He said, "Don't let football use you. Use football." So Elon University. I know Elon Musk is making my alma mater sound terrible right now. But I promise the people of Elon University are great people. They allowed me to go there and play football. And then North Carolina Central University allowed me to go coach. I coached under Coach Mack, where we won the MEAC 3 years in a row, went to the Celebration Bowl there. And while I was there, I was able to get my master's in public health, and the same in Ohio University. So try to, once again, that's why I always tell our kids, anybody out there, use your skill sets, because you never know where they'll take you. And
there you go.
Yeah, I was just blessed and try to follow the path the Most High taking me on. So I appreciate that, Brother Leon.
Councilmember Daronce Daniels, my brother, thank you so much again. Look forward to having you back.
Thank you. I look forward to our game of golf as well too. We might do a live broadcast on the golf course out there. That sounds
I think you'll show me how to use the technology so we can do it on Instagram. I appreciate it. Let's do that.
Let's do that. Yes, sir.
All right. Daronce Daniels, thank you for joining me today. Folks, thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Stay tuned for a new episode tomorrow, and follow, subscribe, leave a review, share the show, follow us on social media. All the links below are in the show description. And remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge, because talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, have a blessed remainder of your day. I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.